I'm a happy person, an optimist. I look for the positive. To me, it's the only way to get through life. Broadway boasts the sun will come out tomorrow, and I'm good with that. But too bad Broadway's sun can't break through Washington's clouds. So don't tell me and lie to me and say that the sun's out when it's pouring rain. And don't give me a political speech all patriotic and sunny when the flood is so high animals are lining up 2 by 2. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Speaking of animals, I watched the president's 6th State of the Union address with my 2 standard poodles. I'm not quite sure who the president was talking to, but none of it rang true to the 3 of us. Right now, my 2 poodles are camped out on a dock waiting for an ark to come by. But then again, it's nothing new. And to paraphrase another Washington paragon, what difference does it make? Well, I'll tell you what difference it makes. Lies threaten your future and your children's future. Yet in an uncertain world, with an uncertain economy and an uncertain future, the president's highlight? A minimum wage increase for federal contractors only. Really? You talk minimum wage while Iran races toward a nuclear weapon, while you reverse the sanctions against Iran as people with terminal illnesses lose their health care because you lied to all of them. And you are trumpeting the minimum wage? And then you pump up the night by telling us the economy has never been better. We have more manufacturing jobs than we did in the 1990s. That we have a great job recovery, the lowest unemployment rate in 5 years, and that we, the United States, are the envy of the world.
The United States is better positioned for the 21st century than any other nation on earth.
Mr. President, who are you talking to? Do you think any of us believe that? Our world standing is far lower than when you came into office. The Middle East burns us in effigy. Even you can't believe yourself. And here's a doozy.
China is no longer the world's #1 place to invest. America is.
According to whom? You're kidding, right? Let me make this simple. China is our creditor. Would you rather do business with a bank or a debtor? The truth? Experts overwhelmingly say the best countries to do business with are Ireland, China, India, Brazil, Canada. We're even behind Estonia, wherever that is. Although they tell me it's near Latvia. Anyway, in this one, we have the lowest unemployment rate in 5 years. Well, of course we do. People are so depressed they've stopped looking for jobs. And if there's such great job creation, why do we need to continuously extend unemployment benefits? Why are there 20 million more Americans on food stamps since you took office? You want to up the minimum wage so more can attain the American dream. I'm all for that. In fact, as a teenager, I worked for the minimum wage for years in a dairy and then as a telephone operator. But if you're pushing the American dream, why the hell are you allowing in illegal immigrants who are competing for that same level of pay? Now, of course, everything in Washington is everyone else's fault. And you tell Congress to get those bills to your desk to put more Americans back to work.
And if Congress wants to help, you can concentrate funding on proven programs that connect more ready-to-work Americans with ready-to-be-filled jobs.
Excuse me, ready-to-be-filled jobs for ready-to-work Americans? Sounds a lot like those shovel-ready jobs that weren't so shovel-ready after you put $800 billion of our hard-earned tax dollars in the stimulus. That one didn't work out so well, now did it? Folks, the truth, it's all theater. And speaking of theater, Mr. President, what's with the Mad Men analogy?
It is time to do away with workplace policies that belong in a Mad Men episode.
You say that women still make 77 cents for every dollar a man earns? A woman deserves equal pay for equal work? Last time I gave that speech was 20 years ago. Have you ever heard of the Equal Pay Act of 1963, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, or the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act? How dumb do you think we really are? And Mr. President, here's a thought. Stop using my wallet and my reproductive organs to instill fear in me and co-opt me into thinking that only you and your party are on my side and that everyone else has declared war on me. Stop pandering, deceiving, and bullying us into thinking that we women are victims. We're doing just fine. Thank you very much. And speaking of bullying, you bring the full weight and authority of the United States Department of Justice against the Little Sisters of the Poor who've devoted their lives to caring for the sick and dying elderly because they follow their religious beliefs, their First Amendment freedom. You even sound like a bully. I'm going to do what I want when I want.
But America does not stand still, and neither will I. So wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do.
Where are you taking your lead from? This guy or the United States Constitution, which clearly outlines the separation of powers? And what's that? You've got a pen and you're going to use it? You're not going to wait for Congress and you're going to use it to help the middle class? Here's an idea. Take that pen and approve the Keystone pipeline. Your State Department, after 2 years and countless environmental impact statements, says it's safe. The issue, you're not even going to get to it till this summer. Why? Thousands of American jobs, not to mention a boon to the local economy. Long-term energy independence. Sign it. You got a pen and you're going to use it? Take that pen and send a memo to Eric Holder to stop your crusade against Catholics and the Little Sisters of the Poor. You're going after the Little Sisters of the Poor is your war on women. And you've got a pen and you're going to use it? Take that pen and force the private sector to protect our grid against the electromagnetic pulse. And your Obamacare numbers, they ain't so rosy either. Don't try to kid us into thinking that all is well when people with terminal illnesses have lost their insurance and more are signing up for Medicaid than anything else. You say that we're coming together, but you won't reach across the aisle. You call your political opponents arsonists and terrorists. You belittle anyone who disagrees with you. This is all theater. Unfortunately, Mr. President, the sun ain't coming out tomorrow, and gloomy skies are in the forecast until at least 2016. And that's my opening statement. With me now, former Massachusetts Senator and Fox News contributor Scott Brown. Senator, thanks for being with us tonight. Do you really think we needed another campaign speech for the State of the Union?
Well, first of all, Judge, it's good to be on, and you were on fire. What a great opening. And listen, I'm kind of used to it. I was there for 3 of them. I sat through them. I thought this was kind of the same old, same old. What the problem is there's a complete lack of trust between the American people in Congress and the American people and the president. And instead of being a great uniter, he's a great divider. And it's very sad, quite honestly, because this country needs somebody who's not going to pit us versus them, the have and the have-nots. Now it's people who are making a good living and creating jobs versus people who don't, through the concept of now income inequality. How about job creation? How about job opportunity? How about remembering that we live in the greatest country in the world?
Senator,
and we need people to create jobs.
You were in Congress during the Keystone pipeline thing. Now his own State Department says, you know, it's not going to have the negative environmental impact that people were saying. And he's saying, well, maybe I'll get to it this summer. If he's really serious about jobs, wouldn't he take that pen he's talking about?
Of course. Listen, everybody knows the Keystone Pipeline, that's a no-brainer. It's good for union and non-union jobs. Right. It's good to get more oil on the world market to keep prices stable while we develop other alternatives, wind, solar, nuclear, hydro, geothermal, fixing the grid, as you referenced, to make sure that it's there for generations to come. There's so much that the president could do with Congress if he reached out and tried to deal with Congress in a professional, responsible, thoughtful manner, but he doesn't. He's a he's a divider, and it's frustrating for folks.
Well, he's a divider, and I think the problem is that because of the way the country is right now, I think people are starting to recognize it. But, Senator, let me go to Hillary Clinton for a minute right now. She said this week, and I kind of got, pushed aside with some of the other news. She said that her greatest regret as Secretary of State was Benghazi. What do you think of her terminology, or greatest regret?
Well, I think it should have been the greatest regret is the loss of life at Benghazi, and the fact that, they should have done more to actually make sure that this didn't happen. The signs were there. I remember the hearings we had, and it was exceedingly frustrating, the most frustrating hearings, trying to get a word, really a response to basic questions, not only from the secretary, but from people who worked for her. And I don't think that's over. And here you have a situation with Governor Christie. They're investigating right away, the state and the feds, and yet we have Benghazi, we have Fast and Furious, we have all these other things that are just kind of, dawdling along, and they'll get to it when they get to it. But gosh, we need to figure out why bridge lanes were closed so fast. It's unbelievable.
Well, Senator, speaking of that, tonight Fox News has obtained an email sent by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's office fighting the allegations that he knew about the bridge closures, calling the New York Times reporting sloppy. And it's kind of curious. He then goes after this guy, David Wildstein. I mean, the gloves are off now, the Port Authority official, who actually directed the lane closures, and who says that Christie knew. And what I find interesting is that the New York Times, when you talk about sloppy reporting, they say Christie linked to knowledge of shut lanes. But they don't say, that the allegation at best, about which we have no evidence, is that he knew about it when it was happening. And this from a guy who's obviously looking for a deal with the feds. What do you make of that?
Listen, of course, and you said it and I said it when it first happened. If there's more, then it needs to come out, and if that's the case, then hey, the chips will fall where they may. But until then, the governor came out, he addressed it right away, he handled it, I thought, professionally. He fired the people that were responsible, and obviously the person who's now making the allegations is looking for immunity. He's being held in contempt by the New Jersey legislature. He's looking for taxpayers to pay his legal bill. That's what the play is really about. And the New York Times, they said they already made 10 or 20 changes to the story, as it was developing. Well, gosh, how about getting it right so you don't have to put really a front runner, a GOP front runner for president, in the defensive, and having to basically clarify the New York Times story. It's once again, it's the nature of the beast, when you're a GOP front runner.
Well, and it's really very sad. I mean, when the New York Times themselves admits that they, were not right in terms of their own headline, and that they've changed their story at least 20 times, as you say, you have to wonder what political agenda is behind the reporting of the New York Times. Anyway, Senator Scott Brown, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Judge. It's great to see you.
All right. And coming up, the president thinks he's above the law. But now does he think he's above the Lord? Will the church be forced to provide contraception? And vote in tonight's INSA poll. Should the administration drop their Obamacare fight against the Little Sisters of the Poor? Facebook or tweet me at Judge Jeanine.